And good morning. It is a Friday edition of GCR. I am Glenn. Grant's been with us all week doing a good job. Had a little bit of apologies to those of you that were trying to listen to the show live yesterday. We had it up on YouTube, but we got it. It's been a week, but Grant's been battling and working hard, and we appreciate that. And it's a Friday, so that means that our friend, the Chief Grand Poobah from PressBox, Stan the Fan Charles, is back in studio with us. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Glenn, and glad to hear that Mr. Graham Clark is on the mend.
Yes, he made a cameo appearance here at PressBox this morning. Yep.
Great.
We got to get some blood work done. We're hoping to get that done today, and as long as that comes back clear, then
I drew some.
Oh, you went ahead and took it.
I
swear, that boy got poked and prodded so much. We were in the hospital for 8 days. I'm pretty sure he had 15 holes in him. Like, they could not have taken more blood during the course of the week. But, yes, he's doing well. Thank you, Stan. I appreciate that. He's doing well, and we're hoping to get some good news. And then if that's the case, he would like to go to the PLL tomorrow. So as long as we get good news on the blood work, if we can get it done today, then the doctors didn't let me take him to the Stateside Cup the other night down in Annapolis. We'd wanted to go to that. I was really planning to make a day of it on Wednesday because he's been in a hospital for a little while. He deserves I was like, we could do the Orioles game in the afternoon, then go down to the soccer match in Annapolis at night.
Right.
Nice little doubleheader. The doctors were like,
I don't think so.
Not yet. Not yet. We want to know that his blood cell counts are back up and that everything's good. So hopefully we'll get that answered. And if we do, then you'll be seeing us at Homewood Field tomorrow. Speaking of which, coming up on the program today, Ajax Zappitello is going to join us. Of course, rock star defender from the University of Maryland. He was the number 3 overall pick in the PLL draft for the PLL Whipsnakes, the Maryland Whipsnakes, that is. Thank you. Griffin's not here to do it. I appreciate you stepping in and doing it for us, Stan. The Whipsnakes homecoming weekend is this weekend at Homewood Field. They'll be playing both tomorrow and Sunday. We'll catch up with Ajax Zappitello. Also on the program today, the great Ken Rosenthal will be joining us from Fox Sports and The Athletic and fair territory, foul territory.
Is he okay with me?
I have no reason to think. In fact, for what it's worth, and I told you this before the show, I know that Griffin's asked Ken to come on the show a few times recently, and it didn't work out. And then when I mentioned to him last night, hey, would you come on with me and Stan? He said,
Stan who?
I know it's a busy time for Ken, so appreciate him taking a few minutes for us this morning. So that's coming up on the program today. Today's show is brought to you by County Sports Zone, countysports.zone. We are just weeks away from the start of high school sports season. And
does high school sports season start when high school starts?
I think in some places it actually starts the week before the school year starts.
Okay.
It's different throughout the state, but I believe at some levels, particularly the private schools, will play some of their like non-conference because those sometimes
it's meant to be just a stupid question.
Oh no, they travel. Like some of those schools. Well, I mean, obviously, like St. Francis travels the entire country, but some of those schools will play like a game against a team in New Jersey or something like that, and I believe they play them the week before the school year starts in order to not have that be a distraction to the kids for going to school. So the point is, the County Sports Zone will have every score for every game at every level throughout the state will be shared at County Sports Zone. So if you want to follow, you got a niece or a nephew that plays out in like Huntingtown, Williamsport, wherever it is, they got you covered. Badminton scores, they got them. Whatever the sport is, they've got the scores. Countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Stan, you and I missed out on being able to jump on with you guys the other night.
I'm sorry about that. It's my fault.
Stan, I say I missed out. I actually did make a cameo appearance for 3 seconds.
For 3 seconds. I was mortified. I said,
Stan was saying goodbye.
I said to myself, let's get off real quick, and I hit the thing, and there's Glenn Clark.
I'm like, hey, guy. Oh. All right. See you guys. So you and I have not had an opportunity to talk about the moves that were made, so we'll dive into that.
You didn't watch the whole show with me and Russ?
Well, I didn't know that you started when you started. I thought I saw an email that said 10:30, so I hopped on at 10. I was ready to go.
It said something about be on the.
I'm sure it did. I just saw 10:30, and I reported for duty at 10:30. Obviously, a lot to cover. Last night was not pleasant in Trevor Richards' first start. I will not as many questions as we have about Trevor Richards, I will not allow one start to try to somebody suggest that's the answer on Trevor Richards. It is not. Now, we had reasonable questions about him when the trade was made, and those reasonable questions to me continue. What I wrote at PressBox this week, Stan, was that essentially I can justify all of the moves the Orioles made.
Mm-hmm.
I can justify them not paying the absurd prices that would have been necessary to make bigger moves. I can understand, based on what the price was for Yusei Kikuchi, why they didn't end up diving into the waters of more higher level pitching.
Right.
I'm still struggling with the construction of the back end of the bullpen. And to the point, not even as you and I don't even know that they needed it to be Tanner Scott and be a Craig Kimbrell replacement.
Right.
To me, they needed a better backup plan. They needed a better option B for what if these issues continue, or, how do we continue to not work Craig Kimbrell that much? They needed another reliable leverage arm that could be either 1B or Plan B.
Yeah.
And not coming away with that at the deadline is the difficult part for me, because if you ask me right now what will happen in the playoffs, my gut is the back end of their bullpen ends up being their undoing unless things drastically change for some of those guys between now and then.
Well, I think one thing that needs to drastically change, and I hear the numbers the other night, Ben McDonald and Jeff Arnold talking about how many runs the Orioles are averaging per game or something. This offense has been
wildly
basically moribund for about a month. It really has, and it centers on Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, and Gunnar to a far lesser extent. But Adley Rutschman's been absolutely terrible. He's been terrible.
Yep, it's been a mess. But I can see the path forward for the offense. As you're right, you're 100% right about their struggles right now. But I can see the path forward for. I don't think Adley Rutschman's just going to be miserable for 3 months, right? Colton Cowser clearly has returned to Colton Cowser from maybe not quite from those 2 weeks in April, but. This is
He's playing a much better,
outstanding
much better
level.
I
could see Jackson Holiday being helpful. As Coby Mayo arrives, it's possible Coby Mayo could be ready to be helpful. I can dissect that path to the offense improving as much. You're right, they need to, but I can dissect how that happens.
Yeah. My only question would be to you is who would you have gotten that moved? Except for Tanner Scott. I mean, there were a lot of little. Estevez would have been. I'm not in love with Estevez, and I also always watch when closers close games for a lousy team. Mm-hmm. Now, you could say there's more pressure on them, because they win so few games.
Yeah, you better win this one.
But I wonder, Tanner Scott. And don't get me wrong, I watched him pitch against the Orioles, and he was lights out each game that he pitched. And I always loved Tanner Scott's stuff, and he controls it much better. It'll be very interesting to see how he pitches in the middle of a pennant race. Sure. And the same with Estevez right now. But Estevez and Scott were the two relievers that you would have really liked to have had.
The Padres paid a big price for Tanner Scott. And again, I can justify not paying the extraordinary price for Scott. The trades that I look at and say, I think you could have paid that price would be Estevez, and then Urseg would be other one. Because, again, I could live with this not being we're getting Craig Kimbrell's replacement. I can live. Craig Kimbrell's going to be part of the story, no problem. But to me, it had to be a 1B or a Plan B.
Right.
And those are the two that I looked at and said, those are legitimate back-end arms that you paid.
Well, we essentially acquired three in the last 6 months, or 8 months. We've acquired the 3 relief pitchers that the Phillies didn't really want.
Right.
So the Orioles clearly think there's something that they can unearth with these two guys. They are also controllable. As much as I've liked Kimbrell this year, the stumbles are a little too, consistent now. I don't think he's part of the picture for 2025, but I think Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto are at least possibilities to carry some of the weight next year, because this notion that we'll be fine next year because we'll have Felix back, you just don't know.
Right,
you know, with Tommy John surgeries, you just don't know what you're going to get.
And that, to the point, is can something change? Sure. If Gregory Soto, who the numbers suggest he's closer to a loogie than a leverage arm at this point, but if they think that there's something that they saw from when he closed in Detroit that he could be a legitimate back-end option, and that happens, then obviously my opinion would change.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember who it was that was on with us the other day. Was it J.J. Cooper who was on with us the other day from Baseball America? No, it was Eno Saris.
Yeah, Saris.
Eno Saris.
From The Athletic.
And
he's great.
He's wonderful, and he swears by Sir Anthony Dominguez's stuff plus.
Yeah.
Is much better. He's like, Sir Anthony Dominguez's stuff plus is better than Urseg's stuff plus.
Right.
Like, I like Dominguez better than I would have liked an Urseg trade.
Right.
Now, again, the Phillies, to the point you just made, they didn't seem to think that was of that great
Remember
value.
one thing about the city of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
As great as the fans are there, it is not, for some, once you get in a doghouse, it's not a pleasant environment.
That's true, too.
Know?
So if Sir Anthony Dominguez, and he looked good, obviously, the other night.
He's looked good. He's had 3 scoreless outings.
Throwing 98 miles an hour. Like, if that's what Sir Anthony Dominguez can be here, then again, this can be what changes my opinion and says, they did address the back end of their bullpen, and they did come up with somebody. And Eno Saris said, he, to me, is your plan B, Dominguez, as a closer. And that's something that I didn't even consider when the trade was announced last Friday. I was like...
Well, I think he had 18 saves with the Phillies about 3
years
ago.
Back, right? It just seemed like he had fallen so out of favor that it didn't seem legitimate to me. But I'll trust, again, Eno Saris, the way he knows numbers, way better than the way that I know numbers, so I will defer to his opinion. And if that ends up being the case, then my take will end up being worthless in a few weeks, because they did address that, and they did get the guy. He just wasn't in that role doing it, the guy that they got.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that I'm down on any of the individual trades they made. I said on Friday, I can't justify a roster spot for Christian Pache. I can't, not in the regular season. In the playoffs, 100%. And if somehow he clears waivers and they can sign him back and keep him in Norfolk, I'm all good with the guy on the roster in the playoffs that does not play other than to come in and pinch run and be a defensive replacement.
Yeah.
In the regular season, those roster spots have to be used for guys that play.
Yeah.
And when you're a right-handed hitter that can't hit lefties,
not good. Yeah.
You can't have a roster spot to me. Right. Now, for what it's worth, Austin Slater this year has hit lefties worse than Christian Pache has. Yeah. For his career, he's a better hitter against lefties.
Right.
That one's tough for me too. And I know that for the average fan looking at it and saying, you're really letting Austin Slater have a roster spot and Heston Kjerstad has to go back down, it's not quite that simple. Heston Kjerstad's not going to be playing if he's on the roster. There's nowhere for him to play.
Other than the days that Santander would DH.
Yeah.
Then maybe you want him in right field. But he tries real hard in left field, but it's not a good.
You can't put your World Series hopes around the idea of Heston Kjerstad figuring out left field as it goes along.
Yeah.
You just can't do that.
Yeah.
And now
so it's quite clear now that Cowser and Mullins are going to play an awful lot.
And again, with the exception of when you face a lefty,
and then maybe Slater starts a game in the outfield.
Because you presume that Jimenez, they basically said Jimenez is just going to DH against lefties, but he said, I'd like to play in the outfield.
I think they told him to leave his glove in Chicago.
Just go ahead. We're not going to need that. He's like, well, I'd like to run. They're like, no.
That's okay. We're good.
It's cool.
We're good. Yeah.
It's cool. But to your point, yes, they might let Slater run around a little bit. In those scenarios, I think they give Cowser the shot to hit against lefties.
I agree. And Mullins would sit.
And Mullins would sit because he's been woeful against lefties this season. So I think the Cowser would play center and then Slater would.
The larger issue with Kjerstad to me is he got off to a terrific start when he came up the second time, which isn't that surprising. And then he got beamed, and I know he flew out deep to center the other night, but I don't think I've seen him touch the ball.
Well,
other than a couple numbers.
And particularly, everybody was coming inside to him, and he was kind of hopeless.
Yeah.
And I'm not down. There is a bigger conversation to have about Heston Kjerstad. I don't know what his future ends up being in Baltimore, because even in the world where I think a lot of us assume Ryan Mountcastle, they would have liked to have dealt him this trade deadline. Even if they're able to deal him in the offseason, that's presumably Coby Mayo's spot.
Yeah.
And so then, most of us, and you tell me if you disagree, Stan, I think a lot of us are in the camp of they should try to do a 3 to 4 year deal with Anthony Santander to keep him around.
I'm in total agreement with you. Yeah, I think he's a real leader on this
100%.
team, and it's very rare to watch a guy get better in the. It really is
this point in his career.
Yeah. Which is the point I've made.
You know what? It's almost a Nelson Cruz-ish, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Nelson Cruz was probably better to start than Santander was,
Right.
but he got, it was amazing to watch Nelson Cruz every time you're like, well, he's got to be moving into the
twilight of his career.
And
the
it
twilight
just
kept
never seemed to
He had like a 3-segment
Right.
twilight, But the criticisms I've made consistently about Ryan Mountcastle have really proven to be true, and I don't pat myself on the back because I like the kid.
Yep.
But he is really going backwards. And Eddie Epstein, who I've talked about before, who really taught me about statistics in baseball early on with his work with the Orioles, used to say that the biggest thing is strikeouts to walks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched it with Mountcastle in the minor leagues, and I told that story about when Buck Showalter walked up to him in spring training one year, and he goes, "Hey, Ryan, how you doing?" And he goes, "Good." He goes, "I saw you only walked 11 times last year." And he goes, "Yeah, how about that?" And Buck goes, "Why are you laughing about that?
Right.
That's how you're going to make money."
Correct.
And he's really, as you watch him, he's a tremendous athlete. He's, to his credit, he's worked his way into being an excellent first baseman, but he just helps the pitcher too much.
And he has more of a hit tool than, he's not.
It's hard to have that hit tool, though, when you're constantly in such a hurry to swing that
I guess what I mean is he's not all natural outcomes. It's not just home runs and strikeouts the way that it was.
No,
for
he's
some of those.
he's got some talent, but it's going to always.
And we saw it again last night where he was a bad 3-2 pitch that he was chasing.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. But as I was just saying, in a world where Mayo replaces Mountcastle, if they end up bringing back Santander, I don't know where the spot ultimately would be for Kjerstad. They could try the experiment again if they move on from Mullins this offseason. They could try a left field experiment again next year, but there is nothing that I saw from Heston Kjerstad playing left field that makes me think that is coming in short order, his ability to play left field in Baltimore.
I think that their thinking on him right now is, let's get him back to where he's hitting phenomenally, so during the offseason we get him moved to a better situation, and that helps us acquire a pitcher.
And that's something that they're going to need. So let's cover that, right? We covered, obviously, the bullpen. And the Jimenez thing, I have no actual excitement about Jimenez. It is weird how, it appeared to be poisonous in Chicago. They were parades for getting rid of Eloy Jimenez in Chicago.
Were there parades for anything involving the White Sox?
I played this clip. Do you still have the clip, Stan? This
clip. Let me pull it up.
NBC Sports. So I don't know why. I love Ozzie Guillen. Ozzie Guillen as an analyst to me is unbelievable. He's very good at it. And particularly because the team is
He's
so
bad. On post-game, right? Yeah.
And they don't own the network.
Right. So he's not working directly for the club.
It's NBC that owns the...
Right.
So he's just... He doesn't care. And knowing Ozzie Guillen, you're not surprised that he doesn't.
Right.
He might be the type that even if he's working for the team, he might not care. So I check... when the White Sox are mired on a 13-game losing streak, I'm looking for, is there some fun thing that Ozzie Guillen has said that I could share as an audio clip?
Right.
Well, I instead stumbled upon on deadline day. They did a trade deadline special on NBC Sports Chicago, and it wasn't Ozzie, but they had other guys. And I apologize, I don't know who it is.
Okay.
But this was their live reaction to the Eloy Jimenez trade on NBC Sports Chicago the other day.
Hold on.
Eloy!
No way.
That is not real. I said this, if this happened on the podcast.
Come on. Jeff Passan reporting that the Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a deal to acquire outfielder.
He's been getting it in the air. He's been getting it in the air.
Sources tell ESPN. Are you kidding me?
All right, so all right, we don't know anything. What's the return?
Eloy, a flipping bag of balls. I wanted to say the other word.
I cannot believe it's come to that.
This is a joyous day. This is a joyous day. I've talked. You guys know where I sit with Eloy. He's that guy is as catastrophic of a failure as any player that's come through the rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, he's been. I mean, considering.
I can't believe a team would take him on. Can we get a thank you Orioles graphic made? Thank you. Instead of thank you Eloy, thanks Cubs. Thanks Orioles.
White Sox dump outfielder Eloy Jimenez's contract. Sending him to the Orioles.
I like
you like the dump.
Dump his contract.
So basically, he may not get anything in return. It might just be you guys pay the rest of his salary.
He dumped on us for 6 years.
That's all we need.
Come on.
Yeah. And again,
hold on.
Even with all of that, Stan, I still say, okay, fine. There's so little that you paid to get him, and he's only here to be a platoon bat against left-handed pitching, which he's hit this year.
Yeah.
I'm still fine. They're not going to pick up his option for next. He's not part of their plans. And if he's a head case, if he's a problem, then in 2 weeks they can say, all right, we tried that. It wasn't worth it. Move on.
Yeah.
Like, I just...
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to lose. And this is one of those cases when Brandon Hyde, I guarantee you, was brought into the mix here. Brandon Hyde had him when he was with the Cubs in player development, and there's a relationship there, and maybe he trusts him more than any manager he's had.
Maybe.
You know, the injuries have certainly short-circuited what he is. Maybe it's a case of lesser appearances, you might get higher percentage of success or something like that. But there's not a lot to lose there, and especially now with Coby Mayo coming up, I think that Coby will get a lot of at-bats at DH as well.
Do you think that Coby Mayo is going to be given a primary opportunity to play third base as he arrives?
I don't think the club sees him as a third baseman, or he would have been up much earlier. I think he will play a few. I think they'll want to see it with their own eyeballs, and you would definitely see if the Orioles had the lead, seventh inning on, that Urias would come in. Yeah,
at that point.
But I think they feel that that's the guy on first base next year.
So all that said, Stan is here. We haven't talked about the rotation yet. The Eflin move is, I think, the one that every Orioles fan says yes.
Which effing move?
That effing move.
I went to look him up the other day, and I got, what's the actor, Efron?
Yeah, Zac Efron.
Zac Efron.
Right?
And I'm going, I didn't say Zac Efron.
Right.
I said,
well, Stan, that's because of all the years that you've been looking for shirtless pictures of Zac Efron.
Exactly.
The computer now just assumes that's what. Hey, look, man, he looked good in that wrestler, the Iron Claw. He looked good in that.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
It's actually a very good movie. So the Eflin move is the one that I think every Orioles fan says yes. Even though he hasn't been overwhelming this season, he is a qualified top 3 rotation type of pitcher that you can trust to start a playoff game, you believe. He was not great in his first start the other night. He gave up 10 hits over 6 innings, but
we had a lead, and, you know.
And that's sort of part of the story on Zac Eflin is that he doesn't walk anybody. He does give up hits. He gets a lot of strikeouts. He tends to minimize the damage. That's part of the deal. Are you comfortable that Eflin and then Rogers, it feels like basically Rogers and Kramer now get to compete to be the 4th starter in a playoff rotation?
I'm not looking that far ahead. I'm looking further ahead. If you look at next year, and I know that Mike Elias wasn't thinking solely of 2025, but if you take the approach that Corbin Burns is going to price himself out of Baltimore, going into the offseason, we would have Grayson Rodriguez and Dean Kramer for next year.
Yes.
Now they have Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer, Zach Eflin, and Trevor Richards. That's far better going into your off season where you need to find one other guy than starting to look for three guys during the offseason.
Agreed, with the caveat being, to me, that's got to be a top-ish guy that you're able to find. Like, I'm not suggesting you're going to get another Burns.
No, I don't think you're going to get a Burns, but I think what's interesting is that they're willing to take on $18 million in Eflin. You can certainly get somebody far better than Albert Suarez.
Yes. You're hoping that
you're like in between Suarez and Corbin Burns, there's a guy that would take 3 years at $17-18 million a year, and suddenly you got a real good pitcher. Maybe that's Nathan Eovaldi.
Yes, you'd like to find your version of Seth Lugo. Like, you'd like to. That's what you'd like to be able to do in the offseason. Yeah. But for now,
had the club been in better financial shape, they might have very much been on Seth Lugo.
100%. That said, for now, do you believe that this rotation can be good enough to win a World Series?
On its face, the rotation doesn't blow me away, except that we're talking so much about Burns not being here. I forget Burns is here.
Yes, he is here.
Yeah, I think the Orioles could win a World Series. I'm not real happy with the way they're playing right now. And the Westberg loss is huge.
It's twofold. If I only look at the rotation and you say the offense gets going again, the offense gets to the place where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Then yes, I do think the rotation can be good enough. But part of that would be, but I think it needs to be better than that because of the concerns I have about the bullpen, right? Like, that's the worry I have, is that this is a good enough rotation to win a World Series, but they don't need a good enough rotation. They need an even better than that rotation, because I just don't know that they're going to be able to hold on and win those games at the end that are close. So that it's a weird gray area for me, where the rotation is not necessarily my concern.
No, I read your piece. You're concerned with the back end, and you've got reason to be. I'm not. If my starters are pitching well,
yes,
and the offense is, look, the offense won't be as good for any team in the playoffs because you're facing the better pitcher. Yeah. But if the offense is operating the way it can operate, I'm not quite as worried about the back end now. I think they've fortified it a little bit. They've added some velocity to it. I don't know if Coulomb will be back or not, and even if he comes back, will he be effective?
That's been a weird conversation, too, because I think we've all been working under the assumption, but like the way that you've heard some guys talking about it almost makes it seem like internally they are not.
Yeah, bone chips, and sometimes you get back fairly quickly from that, and you're okay. You don't miss a blip. Sometimes it doesn't work out right away,
That's the reality, 100%. As far as moving on from Austin Hayes is concerned, it did feel inevitable, in the same way that it feels inevitable that they're like Austin Hayes was not going to be a long-term part of this. Ryan Mountcastle's not going to be a long-term part of this, and I would love for Cedric Mullins to regain Cedric Mullins' form, because that is a unique baseball player to have. But I'm not.
You're not counting on it right now.
I expect him to be a part of it, but I'm not like the other two. I was confident we're not. I still think that there's a world in which Cedric Mullins can look more like Cedric Mullins, and they can reconsider that, but I'm not counting on it, is the way that I would say.
I would say that that's a fair estimate there. With Ryan Mountcastle, I think if Mayo hits the way I expect him to, and again, a lot of times you get totally buffaloed on that. Maybe he'll struggle at the major league level initially, but if he hits the way I think he will, I think even if the ball club can't trade Brian Mountcastle, I think he's a non-tender next year.
Yeah, I mean...
Now, look, Mayo may hit 170, and we'll be sitting here going, Stan, what the hell do you know?
You can't do that, right?
Yeah. But
it's a tough thing to do, but I understand.
They're not going to pay him $7-8 million next year.
I get it. Yeah. I get it entirely. Yeah. Anything else from this week? specifically that stood out to you?
Well, I think the big thing that stood out for me is the club's willingness to take on more payroll.
Right.
And I think that bodes very well for, when you start to talk about the numbers of extending all these players, Santander or Burns, along with Rutschman or Henderson or both of them, it's like mind-blowing how quickly that payroll can suddenly go from $60 million to $250 million.
Yep.
It's when you talk about 4 or 5 players and you want to sign all of them, you go, yeah, but that would take us from $60 million to $230 million.
You're adding $30 million per guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're adding an extraordinary amount of money per player in that scenario. And I know it's not exactly that.
Santander's probably more like 20 a year.
Yes, something in that neighborhood.
I think he'd give the team a bit of a hometown discount. I've never seen him. Now I don't know who his agent is.
I don't either. When we talked to him 2 weeks ago, I brought it up because you have to bring it up, right? Like you can't have somebody like that on a show and not bring it up. It wasn't like he was on to talk about All-Star voting, but you have to have that conversation. And he was effusive in the way that he talked about his desire to be here. It wasn't just he's
very comfortable here. And he loves playing for Brandon. He loves the place he has of esteem in that clubhouse. And it's a comfortability factor.
Yep.
And I think if they make him a fair offer,
all things being equal, that he would he would like for his future to be in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that as being the assessment, and I would like for his future to be in Baltimore as well, because you simply can't look. This year it's going to be 40-some home runs. I'm not counting on that every year,
right?
But you can't the think that you're just going to create 30+ home run hitters, guys that can put the fear of God into someone when they come to the plate.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen that way.
Now perhaps perhaps what they'll do with their calculus of all this is maybe that's where Kjerstad, maybe they make a determination
they are so confident
that Santander, we can't afford Henderson and Rutschman and Santander, so we can afford the two of them, but we'll make it up with Kjerstad making for the next 4 years, $18 million.
It might be the case. Yeah. It might very well be the case. I hope it's not, personally.
I hope it's not either.
It might very well be
the
case.
Luke gave me a good comp. He sees what Santander can get out on the open market as being sort of like Kyle Schwarber money, which is $480. 4 for 80.
It's really funny because at the beginning of the season I thought the numbers would be more like 350, right? But the way he's performed
he's really
this
performed
year, you're probably closer to being right. Yeah. I would hope that it's more like 470, something like that, but I don't think you're far off.
The crazy thing is watching him perform in right field. I always wondered why the hell Ryan McKenna was.
Well, and that was the thing. Look, the numbers don't lie. His range is not great in right field,
but he catches.
But he's not a butcher of the baseball, and again, he makes up for the range because his arm is so strong. He's not a plus defender because of the arm, but he does nullify some of the weaknesses in his range with the strong arm.
And he tracks balls very well.
100%. Yeah. He is not a butcher at all defensively. He's just not a guy that's ever going to cover an extraordinary amount of ground.
That would be like if he died in 30, 40 years, that would be on his tombstone. He was not a butcher.
Not a butcher. Definitively not a. Somebody calls and says, what do you want people to know about Anthony Santander? That man,
definitively not a butcher.
Promise you. Baker, candlestick maker, perhaps. Not a butcher. Swear by it. Hopefully the Orioles will get things turned around. I mean, this is a big series. After last night's loss, the Orioles fall back into a tie, and this is not like the tie where they still have games in hand. That's evened out. The Orioles and Yankees have the dead-on same record now, so they're back into a tie for first place in the AL East, and the Guardians are very likely to be a team that you are competing with potentially for getting the number one.
The question is, are the Guardians the best team in the American League?
At the moment, I I understand.
They don't have the back end issues.
No, they certainly do not have any back end issues.
They've got Kate Smith, Gaddis, and this guy Heron is pretty good.
No problem in the back end of their bullpen.
And they got a guy named Clase.
They people will tell you they have other inconsistencies and the starting pitching is inconsistent. They've got other things, but at the moment you said who's the most complete team in the American League? I'd be inclined to say it's Cleveland. And Steven Kwan has not stopped hitting. And Jose Ramirez has not stopped being Jose Ramirez. And
I'll tell you who's a tough as nails hitter. I can't stand facing Josh Naylor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Even though his brother hit the 3-run bomb.
Well, and Fry hit a ball that, like, just, Jesus. That
was
ball
such
had
a terrible
family.
pitch.
It was an awful pitch. It was an awful, awful pitch. All right, it is a Friday edition of GCR. Stan, we were talking about the show you guys did the other night, and then you did another show last night.
Did something with Eric Garfield, and we had some good discussions about what the Orioles gave up, and we did a deep dive into that seemingly nothing trade. Mm-hmm. Billy Cook for right-handed pitcher Patrick Riley, and Eric has seen him pitch in the Florida Complex League before. Very familiar with him. He went to Vanderbilt. Baumeister went to Florida State or Florida?
Oh, man, now. I
think it's Florida State.
Okay. No, you're right. It absolutely is Florida State. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So they were in the same league together. And the numbers pitching in A-ball this year, Baumeister with Aberdeen, and he's going to get better, Baumeister. Riley's numbers, though, are a little bit better.
So you can find that right now. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. When we return, we're going to catch up with the great Ken Rosenthal from Fox. He's working the broadcast tomorrow night. We will do that next. Stan's here. It's a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday, and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Frederick Keys Baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimio Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at driveeasymd.com.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Friday edition of the program. Stan is here. Still to come this morning, Ajax Zappitello from the Maryland Whipsnakes will join us. We'll go around the week that was in the rest of baseball as well. You got big plans for the weekend, Stan? You got?
There are 3 Oriole games.
There are. You're just going to be hanging out watching the 3
I've got a
Oriole
60th
games.
birthday party of one of the original owners of PressBox.
Oh, cool.
And I think that's it. I'll walk tomorrow morning, and I'll walk Sunday morning.
I will. I'm going to see Hootie and the Blowfish tomorrow night
Wow.
at Merriweather Post Pavilion.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to that. I have not seen Hootie and the Blowfish in a very long time, but I will still sing along to every song. I will enjoy that. I am trying to get out the PLL tomorrow as well, so I'm hoping to make a nice day out of it tomorrow. But, as Stan mentioned, there are 3 Orioles games this weekend, and tomorrow night's game you're not going to find on MASN or MASN 2, so don't be scrolling for it. Tomorrow night's game is only on Fox. And I believe that it's Adam Amin and John Smoltz that are doing the broadcast with our next guest. We had to do this a little bit earlier on this morning because of his very busy schedule, but an opportunity to catch up with the great Ken Rosenthal right here on GCR. It's always a pleasure to be joined by our next guest here on GCR. You will be seeing him tomorrow night as the Orioles take on the Guardians. That game is on Fox. He is formerly of Baltimore, the great Ken Rosenthal, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Ken, it's Glenn and Stan. It's always great to chat with you, sir. Thank you for squeezing us in, and what I know is probably like literally the busiest week of your year.
Well, it's pretty much over, though, the busiest part. Now I've got one more broadcast, and then I'm going on vacation. So things are good, guys. You got me at the right time.
Is that a tradition for you? Like you get through the trade deadline, and then you immediately schedule a vacation the following week?
It's not always immediately. Basically, I take 1 week in August and 1 week at Christmas. That's it, because stuff never stops.
It doesn't
so
stop.
This year, it just works out where I'm taking it right away.
Good for you. Ken, let's just start generically. Your reaction to the many moves the Orioles made and the sense that you got around the league about the reaction. I know much like basically everyone else in baseball, none of these were seismic moves, but certainly a large number of moves that were made.
Right, and I think fans have to understand that Skubal didn't get traded, Blake Snell didn't get traded, Garrett Crochet didn't get traded, and it was not a great market of players. And that was the issue that the Orioles and other teams faced. So I thought they did well under the circumstances. I know Trevor Richards didn't have the greatest night last night, but they needed controllable starters. We knew that. They got 2, which is pretty good, and it's not easy to get those guys, and they're expensive. So they did that. They addressed the right-handed bat that they wanted with 2 guys, Slater and Jimenez. And I thought overall they did okay. The relievers, that part of it's going to be really interesting because you're essentially taking 2 guys that the Phillies didn't really want and were willing to trade. So we'll see what they can do with them, and we'll see if it goes any better for them in Baltimore than it did in Philadelphia. But that was interesting to me. That might have been the most interesting part, actually.
It's funny, Ken, because that to me is the biggest. I can be okay with every move the Orioles made. The one issue I have looking at the roster is I just worry that the back end of the bullpen is going to be their undoing come the playoffs. There have been some folks that have tried to. You don't understand how good Sir Anthony Dominguez's stuff plus is. In another bullpen, he's a higher leverage guy. He could be more of a back end guy. Can this team win the World Series with the back end of the bullpen? Unless Craig Kimbrell really turns around and finds it consistently?
It's an excellent question, Glenn, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Soto at one time was a closer.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy that in Detroit was really good, and Philadelphia wanted him to supplement their back end, and he ultimately was not the closer there and was not happy about it. So here he is. He's not going to be the closer in Baltimore, at least not every night. And it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts because as a player, sometimes you don't get what you want. It's pretty much simple. So I don't know, again, if Kimbrell can find it the way he did earlier this season. I don't know if maybe Soto can be that guy. Sir Anthony at one time was a bullpen elite guy. So all of these things are in play for them, and maybe they'll unlock some things that the Phillies couldn't. I don't know.
Ken, the big takeaway for me is that we're now, 4 months into the David Rubenstein era, him and his group, and they took over 100% control of the team the other day and settled that deal. But is that Mike Elias is finally going to have some financial wherewithal to be more of a player. Is that a takeaway for you?
Yes, it wasn't the biggest takeaway because it wasn't as if they took on a $100 million contract.
Right.
But they did take on some money here. And there's no doubt they took on some money for this year and for next year. And it is clear that they will have more flexibility than they did under the Angelos family in the later years.
Yeah.
Now, my gosh, Stan, it couldn't be any worse.
Wasn't a high bar.
It was always going to be a situation where it got better. And I don't know, and I know fans, some of them reached out to me and said to me in comment sections and stuff, why do you think we're not signing Burns? Because I don't know that they're ever going to be in that kind of position where you commit $200 million or whatever it's going to take to a starting pitcher. But they should be able to operate in a way better than the Tampa Bay Rays, the Cleveland Guardians, the Miami Marlins, the Oakland Athletics. Those teams are more challenged than the Orioles should be. The Orioles have challenges. There's no doubt about that. But they should be more leaning mid-market than small market.
Makes all the sense in the world. Ken Rosenthal, of course, Fox Sports, The Athletic, Fair Territory. He's with us here on GCR.
He washed my cars, my wife and my car last week. It was unbelievable. He
flew
in.
Busy man.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's possible. Mel Anthony used to say you could catch him delivering pizzas sometimes. Love you, Miss Mel. So, Ken, I guess the follow-up to the trade deadline is then the Orioles aggressively return Jackson Holliday to the major league level, and then with the injury to Jordan Westberg, they're also bringing Coby Mayo up for the first time. And I don't know if the plan really ever was to try to protect rookie status for those guys and, try to get the draft pick next year. But it does feel like there's a little bit more like push to say, hey, we think we have a chance. Let's go take advantage of it right now, right?
No question. And even a couple of weeks ago, when I asked somebody in their front office about how far they would go with trading prospects if necessary, because their plan has always been that they'll be better in 24 than they were in 23, that they'll be better in 25 than they were in 24, in 26, and in 25. Understood that. But when you have these opportunities, and this is not just a media person saying this is the reality of the game. When you have an opportunity to win the World Series, and they do, you have to honor that. You have to go for it. So they've done that with their transactions, and they've also done it with the way they've handled the players. Holiday was up pretty early, not at the start of the season, and it was shown for all of our screening that he didn't need to be up as early as he did. He wasn't really ready. So I don't see them as a team that has kind of played games here. They got the extra pick for Gunnar last year, and that was great. So why would they need to? they can do some things and be aggressive. It simply wasn't a spot for Mayo until now. Mm-hmm. And the interesting trade also, guys, I'll get back to this, the Rodgers trade. Obviously, that's one that could bite them if they don't figure out Rodgers, right? And his velo's down from his past years and all that. But, my gosh, Norby and Stowers were never going to play for them.
Yep.
So they had this excess, and granted, would they have preferred to use it for Turk Skubal? Yeah, but that wasn't getting that done.
Right. Yeah.
And they took advantage of the opportunity that was there for them, and I had no problem with them. I fully expect that deal could bite them. Not for sure will, but could. At the same time, it got them something that was really hard to find in that market, and that's a guy who's under control for a couple of years beyond this one.
Ken, I know that the Eloy Jimenez trade doesn't seem on the face of it big at all. Can you put your finger? I remember watching the spring training game on television where he tore his pectoral muscle, by catching his arm on the fence. Is that what robbed him of what could have been, or has it been a series of things? And he's only 27 years old. Is there anything left in the tank there?
It's been a series of things, Stan. It's been one thing after another with him. And, my gosh, you put him in the outfield, he's getting hurt.
Yep.
That's kind of what's happened with him. But, yeah, there's a lot of potential in there. It's just a matter of the rust coming off and whether he can help the Orioles over 2 months, because they're not going to pick up the option, I wouldn't think.
Right.
And he's a guy that at one time was Coby Mayo. It's better.
Yeah.
So it's worth a shot. I was a little surprised by that one, honestly.
Yeah.
But they wanted a right-handed hitter after trading Hayes, and he's worth a flyer. Obviously, the White Sox picked up a good amount of the money, and they'll take a shot here.
And look, he's hit lefties this season, if nothing else, and the Orioles could use that.
Yep.
So I don't. Given what they gave up for it, I don't think anybody can argue that it's a move that's okay. That there's no risk there really for them to have gone out and picked up Eloy Jimenez. Ken, if I could run by you, because you brought up obviously. Look, we were doing a lot of fantasy talk over the last couple of weeks, and everybody in Baltimore was speculating. Was Skubal really ever actually on the trade block? And was there some world where the Orioles could have manufactured a holiday? Like, was there a deal that simply there is just no way it was going to happen, or was it just he never was really actually going to be traded? It was just more like, hey, if you want to give us your entire system, we'll listen.
It's kind of a little of both. They are obligated to listen, as any team in their position would be. But at the same time, they didn't want to trade Skubal, so if you were going to get him, you were going to have to use whatever term you want. Empty your system, trade your best guy, whatever the case might be. And I know that some people in Baltimore might think, well, yeah, Jackson Holliday, that would have gotten it done. And it probably would have, Jackson Holliday plus. But you're trading 6 years of a potential superstar for 2 years of a starting pitcher who has had an injury history. And that, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. So I fully expect, as you guys saw the other night, that Jackson Holliday is going to come darn close to fulfilling his potential if he doesn't completely fulfill it. And when he does that, the Orioles are going to be happy they had him and not Turk Skubal. So could you have gotten him if you completely overpaid? Yeah. But no team, no rational team is going to do that. It's just not the way things work. And, again, they are in a position where they could trade prospects and they could overpay in certain instances because they had these duplications in their system. But I wouldn't have been down with that kind of trade. I don't think that was a smart thing. Would have been a smart thing to do.
Ken, I do a once-a-week podcast with a young man who lives down in Bradenton who really is a prospect expert throughout a lot of baseball, not just the Orioles. And he told me about this sort of off-the-grid trade the Orioles made where they traded outfielder Billy Cook because they've got so many outfielders, and they got back a right-handed pitcher who actually pitched at Vanderbilt. His name is Patrick Riley. And he tells me that Riley, it's so fascinating to watch Elias, how many levels he's working on. He kind of replaced Baumeister, who they gave up. He was a competitive balance pick last year. And his numbers at the same level of ball are better than Baumeister, who went to Tampa. So Elias really does interesting work. I'm not sure if you're aware of that trade or the players, but just wanted your comment.
Sam actually wasn't aware. I remember the names being moved, but there were, 60-something trades.
Right. Yeah.
Jumped to the top of the list. But your point is a good one. These guys, and it's not just Elias, all the good general managers and heads of baseball operations, they are able to do all these kinds of different things and see the bigger picture. That's their job.
Yeah.
And some do it better than others, of course. And Elias, it's hard to argue he hasn't done a great job for the Orioles. So that's the kind of move that is under the radar and may work to their benefit. The question always becomes with these things, evaluation. Did they do or evaluate Bowmaster properly? Did they evaluate this kid properly? And who will win in the terms of evaluating better? And it also depends, of course, on the player's health and whether he is able to do what he is projected to do. All of these variables come into play. And I actually wrote something today about just how it's so hard to judge these trades. And we all jump and do the winners and losers thing, and it's all fine and it's entertaining, but we don't know what the heck is going on. And we don't know how these players are going to develop. And it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a crapshoot, because there is, of course, expertise involved. But there are a lot of variables that go into whether a trade is successful or not. And when you're dealing with prospects, we're not going to know for years if some of these trades were good or not.
Yeah.
So for all the talk about A.J. Preller overpaying, for instance, now in some deals he has overpaid in the past. But who knows? It may turn out that the guys he traded for Tanner Scott and Honig with the Marlins are not guys who fulfill their potential. In that case, he did fine, right? So it's hard to judge in the immediate.
So you might laugh because the question I was going to wrap with for you, Ken, was, of all of the moves that were made, what to you was the one that was the most impactful in terms of someone perhaps changing their reality of winning the World Series this year?
Well, that is a fair question in the sense that, Glenn, we've got 2 months here, right?
Yep.
2 months for these players to make an impact, and one of them or more of them will do that. That part you can judge. We're going to see it right in front of us play out. Jack Flaherty, it would seem to me, and I know Orioles fans might laugh at this after what they saw last year, but he would seem to me to be the guy in best position to do that. Now, Jazz Chisholm Jr. has had a great impact on the Yankees already. We'll see if it lasts, if he goes at third base. But he, too, has had a big impact so far. And those two guys, I would say, looking at the pennant race and what's ahead in these next 2-3 months with the playoffs coming up, I would say right now, the way I look at it, they have a chance to make a big impact. But don't forget Estevez in Philadelphia and Tanner Scott in San Diego, even a Rosarena in Seattle. All of these guys have a chance to do some big things.
Ken, I got one last thing from me. The job that Mike Schild is doing in San Diego, is he greatly respected in the game as a real good manager?
He is definitely thought of well for what he did in St. Louis and what he has done in San Diego. And, yeah, I would say probably Stan, he's maybe a little bit underrated.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's Bruce Bochy.
No, he's not. But he's...
It's weird. It's weird that this team last year could not get it together under Bob Melvin, who was a good manager.
Yeah.
They could not get it for whatever reason. I still cannot figure it out. And then this year, they are really good. And, yes, he's doing a really good job with them because they've got starting pitching injuries, and Darvish is on the restricted list with a personal matter. They have had some things go wrong, and yet they have played much more to their potential than they did last year. Now, maybe last year it was Bogart's first year. Soto was kind of in an uncertain place in his career, and it really just didn't click. These things happen, right? You have good years, you have bad years, but you cannot underestimate what Schild has done there. He's done a really good job.
Ken Rosenthal, I know obviously tomorrow night, of course. Do you have a charity lined up for the bow tie?
I do. It is a group in Cleveland that is associated with hunger. I don't know the name off the top of my head. I can't remember it. But it's a pretty good one. So we'll be doing that one, and I'll be in Baltimore in a few weeks.
Excellent.
We've got a game in Baltimore in a few weeks.
We can't wait for that. And, of course, as always, at The Athletic as well. And Ken_Rosenthal. And, of course, fair territory for you, but you're constantly appearing with the guys on foul territory as well. And I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
That show's a lot of fun, man. Ken, really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for squeezing in a few minutes with us this morning.
Okay, take care, guys.
It's the great Ken Rosenthal. And again, Orioles Guardians tomorrow night on Fox. And, to his point, right? Like, he obviously concurs. It does show that they're willing to put a little more money in moving forward. But how much that will prove to be,
Well, I think, and I laughed at when he said it really wasn't that, they didn't, when he said it wasn't like they took on $100 million. Right. But I think the amount they took in such a brief window was a really good sign.
Well, and I think that's the Orioles fans will be disappointed when Corbin, and I say when, I guess we can still say if Corbin Burns is not an Oriole next season. But I have personally never believed. You're fine, Sam. Don't worry about it.
I keep hitting your foot.
I have personally never thought that was in play because Corbin Burns hired you don't hire Scott Boras to say, "Hey, I really like it here.
Right.
Just get me a fair deal." You could hire anyone.
Right.
To do that.
You could hire us.
I will have you. I swear to God, Corbin.
Call.
The law firm of Clark and Charles. We're on it. You hire Scott Boras because of one reason.
He's a bloodsucker.
Every possible penny that you can get, no matter what you got to do and where you got to go in order to get it.
Yep.
That's the reason why you hire Scott Boras. So could that be Baltimore? I can't say that it can't be.
Right.
But the likelihood that it's Baltimore is very small to me.
If the Orioles were to get deep in the playoffs or win the World Series, and he's absolutely phenomenal, I think there would be a shot that they would at
David
least
Rubenstein
get in.
Walks in and says,
"This
guy that's been doing all the pitching.
Right.
Tell me about this guy.
Yeah.
What's it going to cost?
Right.
You know what? I tell you what. You've got my blessing.
Yeah.
Go right ahead and do it. Maybe,
Instead of what Peter said in 2000, $70 million is enough for Mussina.
Every 5 days.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
You know what? It's often forgotten, and I just happen to know some of the history.
Right.
If you remember when Peter came in, one of his first big contracts he had to deal with, like 2 years later or 3 years later, was Mussina. And they had put out this big edict. The Orioles are not going to give 5-year contracts to pitchers. And Mussina signed a 3-year contract. Tom Glavine gave him a lot of shit, raft of shit. Right. About a year later, they signed Scott Erickson to a 5-year contract. Right. And I remember asking Pat Gillick at McCafferty's, I said, you got this situation here. Do you think that's fair? And do you think you'll try and go back in and adjust the numbers for Mussina? And he said, we're looking into that now. And you never heard a word about it because I think Peter got wind of it. And Peter, some to his credit, a contract is a contract. We'll deal with that. And to me, that was foolish to treat Mussina that way. But that's the same approach that Peter took on the deal with the Masson.
Yep.
Was a contract's a contract.
Yep.
And this contract didn't say it's for 5 years and then it's over. It's for perpetuities, So.
Well, obviously that's not. They're no longer. Peter is no longer the one making the decisions, and we will see how this goes.
Yeah.
I think
I'm not predicting they'll sign Burns, but I don't think there's a zero chance.
The way that Ken says it, I think, makes it a bit more concerning that they will sign any, because that's the same. That type of money is what it's going to take in order to keep any of these cats around.
See, but I don't think you can only get the top guys. I don't think you can shop at the dollar
Seth
store.
Lugo earlier. Seth Lugo is the perfect example of there is room between these
Those
two things.
people are identifiable.
I'm saying uniquely for trying to keep Gunnar, Adley, those guys around.
Yeah.
Like the Santander deal would be the type of deal that would fall into the category we're talking about.
Yeah.
That it's not not ungodly money in baseball terms.
Right.
It's still a lot of money, but it's not ungodly money. It's the question of, are they ever going to spend the ungodly money to keep a player around, to sign? I never expect them to sign a free agent at that number, but to keep one or more of their own around at those numbers. Will they ever be the team that does that? And the way that Ken said it makes you wonder if they're ever going to be the team that even does that. We'll see. There's plenty of time for that to be reconsidered, and if they don't win a World Series this year, as David Rubenstein uses that phrase, race to the finish a lot, like, he might very well come back and say, no, I'm willing to not Steve Cohen it, but put a good investment in right now because I want to win a World Series while I can enjoy it.
Right.
It might very well prove to be the case, but we got to see that before we can talk about it that way.
You know, it was interesting the other day because Mike Elias met with the media for about 23 minutes, and one of the things he talked about was, you know, we're going to be having this renovation of the stadium, and he said, not just a renovation. He goes, we plan to monetize the stadium much better than it has been before. So you can see the wheels turning, not of Mike Elias, but this group
Kerry
is saying,
Watson for sure has spoken openly, I think publicly. I mean, if it's not, he's done it loudly enough privately that I don't think I'm speaking out of turn about their interest in other dates during the year for other events.
well, other dates, and also the movement of the press box is going to happen. That area will become very lucrative. 8 or 10 skyboxes or something like that.
We will see more and more of that as, you know, they spend the $600 million in upgrading the stadium. There will be more of those things. But I know he's been out there talking about their interest in doing there being a year-long usage of the stadium for more opportunities to profit and more. And everybody says, so what, more concerts? Well, it's not just concerts. They're like these winter festivals that you see other teams doing to get people to the ballpark in November and December and times that you would otherwise not have. You're not doing concerts in November and December in Baltimore.
You would go.
Depending on what the
concert is. If it was Hootie
is.
and the Blowfish.
I don't know. In December, that's an awful lot to ask to sit outside. I don't know what it would be. I love that Paul McCartney show. I'm not sure I would have done that in December. But they do. They have interest in doing more in order to make it and that's part of the land usage and what they want to do around the ballpark because they want to make everything more valuable. We will see how it all plays out. All right, we're going to talk to Ajax Zappitello in a few minutes as the Whipsnakes homecoming weekend in the PLL is coming up Saturday and Sunday at Homewood Field. Also, we finally got to see the new NFL kickoff last night. I'm sure you were glued to the Hall of Fame game, Stan.
I did not watch it.
Neither did I. But I did look at what it looked like, and we can talk about that. And also, speaking of the Hall of Fame, next year is going to be an interesting year for Baltimore fans in terms of the Football Hall of Fame. So we'll talk about all that next. Stan's here, Glenn Clark Radio.
Frederick Keys baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimio Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Hagerstown, Maryland. a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8 with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Friday edition of the program. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us. Stan, the Hall of Fame game, the first football game, if you will, of the season was last night. They didn't get to finish it, apparently, because there was some weather in Ohio. But it happened, and we saw the first dynamic kickoff. This is the new NFL
called a
kickoff
dynamic
rule,
kickoff,
where all of the, other than the kicker, everybody's up on the other side of the field, so it prevents those high-energy,
violent collisions.
And then
they're only running like 10 yards each, right?
Correct. And then it encourages returns instead of touchbacks, because if the ball goes into the end zone, then
it comes out to the 30. So your goal is to kick it between the 20 and the 1.
Yes, correct.
Roughly, or
that's
half
called
yard.
The landing zone.
The landing
essentially.
Zone.
And there is a rule: if you don't make it to the landing zone, there's also I don't remember what happens where the ball goes, but like you got to kick it in the landing zone is the story. I looked at it. It doesn't look like it's going to dramatically it's one of those things like when everybody flipped out about the extra point being moved back. You're like, dude, it's an
Right.
Why are we spending this much time talking about it? You see it and you're like, yeah, it's goofy, but whatever. It's a kickoff.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably still going to largely be. I don't think it's going to dramatically change anything about the way you watch football.
I've got a great idea for
yeah?
baseball.
Oh.
You know, there's all this talk about velocity.
Yes.
You get a pitcher. Let's say it's Garrett Cole. He can elect to throw the ball to the batter, or he can toss it to a midget or a dwarf like 10 yards away, and that guy throws the pitch.
Huh. I don't think this one's going to go over quite as well, Stan. I don't think this one's going to be received
No,
openly.
Is it the dwarf thing?
I don't.
The midget or
and
dwarf?
I'm not even sure what.
I don't want to get children involved,
right?
Because it's very dangerous.
Are we supposed to say little? I don't know what the preferred terminology is, and so I have to apologize. I just don't know, and I'm very sorry. If someone knows, please let us know, and I will make sure I use that term moving forward. I don't think this one's going to gain a lot of traction. I don't think this one's.
You think I'm onto something though, conceptually?
No. But other than that,
I thought I had a great idea. I was going to go to David Rubenstein with it.
I would maybe wait on that one. Let's keep workshopping it before we put it in front of.
I'll come back in next Friday with another.
Something a little bit. Anyway, so speaking of the Hall of Fame, this weekend a new class of Hall of Famers is going in.
Art Modell?
No, unfortunately, not Art Modell. Brief former Raven Devin Hester, who you probably have already forgotten was ever a Baltimore Raven, but
it's almost like the Levon Soto era.
Almost as short as Levon Soto era will prove to be. But he spent part of the 2016 season in Baltimore. Dwight Freeney, Randy Gradishar, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Steve Mongo McMichael, Julius Peppers, Patrick Willis, all going into the Hall of Fame this weekend. Next year becomes the next year where there are interesting Baltimore conversations to be had related to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The headliners for next year, as far as the Hall of Fame first-year eligible are concerned, would be Luke Kuechly, the legendary Carolina Panthers linebacker, who almost certainly will be
it's hard to imagine he wouldn't make it.
I just can't fathom why he wouldn't be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, but look, man, crazier things have happened. Also, Eli Manning is first-year eligible for the Hall of Fame. The totality of his career, nothing close to a Hall of Famer.
2 Super Bowls.
The 2 Super Bowls, and he did it in the New York market, and he's a Manning and all that. I don't know that he gets in next year, but it won't surprise me if he gets in the first year, and he's certainly, to me, going to end up getting in, but it might very well be next year. The next 2 names on the list of first-year eligibles are very interesting for Baltimore fans. Terrell Suggs, first year of eligibility for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Next season?
Next year. So come this Super Bowl will be when that debate kicks back up.
Yeah, and Haloti Ngata?
Marshall Yanda.
Marshall
Yanda in his first year of eligibility next year. For what it's worth, Marshawn Lynch is also in his first year next year, as is Adam Vinatieri in his first year of eligibility.
When is Ngata? 1 year later?
I think Ngata was on this past year and just didn't break through. So the question becomes, Stan, I think that Terrell Suggs and Marshall Yanda are both going to be Hall of Famers.
I do too.
I don't know whether they're both going to be, or
first
either
year
one
Hall
of them is going to be first year. Like we're so used to, the Ravens have had 3 up, 3 down first year eligible Hall of Famers with Jonathan Ogden, Ray Lewis, and Ed Reed. They were no-brainers. There was no need for lengthy debate. The discussions, every time you talk to somebody who was in on them, was very short. Jonathan Ogden, yes. Ray Lewis, yes. Ed Reed, yes. Move on. This will be the first time that a Raven, not somebody who played for the Ravens like Shannon Sharp or Rod Woodson, like this will be the first time that a real Raven goes into eligibility for the Hall of Fame, that I don't think it will be as cut and dry, those conversations, or they might be asked to wait a bit before they get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I'd say that Ngata, who didn't play his entire career for the Ravens, is a precursor of that, though, that he didn't go in automatically.
I'm not as confident that Ngata ever gets in.
Really?
As I am. Like, these two, to me, both will get in.
I would agree with you. To me, Ngata was really a unique.
He was
a monster.
Unbelievable. I am a Haloti Ngata guy.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for a nose tackle to. There's not the statistics in order to.
What is it? They think it's just that they're sheer heft.
I don't even know if it's that, Stan, because you would think they would just measure him against other nose tackles. It's just never really seemed to be a. In order to get in, like Aaron Donald is going to get in immediately. Because Aaron Donald, you can measure against other players because he was disruptive and getting sacks and collecting statistics. Other nose tackles, regularly their job is take on a double team so that someone else can go in and make the play. And we don't have any statistic has done a good job of reflecting how.
You think I should work on that
instead of working on the little person thing, that it might be time to work on that statistic.
What if we used midgets or dwarfs?
Right.
Again, I'm not quite clear on the difference.
Right.
But what if they were in the mosh pit,
right,
and they started calculating
who
really helped make the play, and it's almost like it's.
I don't think this one's gonna work.
Okay.
I don't think that this is. I respect it.
Is it the dwarf and the midget
I think that's
thing?
part of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's. I would say the biggest part of it. That's the. You
don't get this stuff from Drew Forrester.
No, you sure don't. And but you say that. Sometimes I do, unfortunately, Stan. Sometimes this is exactly what I get.
How's Drew doing, by the way? I haven't talked to him
about it. He hasn't been in here for a little bit, but I was down at the beach a few weeks ago, and he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, we're at the beach too. We're in Fenwick. Come see us." And we went out, and our families had ice cream together.
Oh, that's
which
nice.
was lovely. The Forresters and Clarks.
How old are his kids now?
They are Ethan's
26.
He looks like he's 30. But he's, I think, 16, Ethan, and Lucy, I believe, is 13 or 14. I don't remember which one. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway, I'll wrap the thought. I think Terrell Suggs has a chance to get in on the first year. I would be very surprised if Marshall Yonda gets in on the first year. I think they're both ultimately Hall of Famers. The Vinatieri one is also interesting for, like, if he gets in on the first year, then there's no debate that Justin Tucker is going to get in on the first year. It might be that he doesn't get in on the first year and Justin Tucker still does, but if he does get in year one, there is no chance whatsoever that Justin Tucker doesn't get in on the first year of eligibility. That's the way that it's going to be.
How do you think Tucker will do with this? Do you think he'll be able to put it in the landing zone?
I think it would be. I think it'll be interesting because his weapon has been just boom. Again, the Ravens are forward-thinking.
It takes that out of the game
right.
a little
They're
bit.
forward-thinking with special teams. Presumably, they have been spending a lot of time working on this, and I think that Justin Tucker will be plenty capable of doing exactly what it is they want, but it does kind of nullify a little bit of what Justin Tucker's strength had been, which is just boom the ball through. There's no reason to go. Have no risk whatsoever of return. Just get on with it and go play defense. So that does nullify that a little bit with the new kick.
What if the dwarfs and
I
the
think
midgets
I just don't think
kicking?
Stan,
What if they kick it into the landing zone?
I appreciate where your head's at. Right. I just don't think it's going to play out that way.
Okay.
Let's switch gears this weekend. Homewood Field, which is always the most electric stop of the season for the PLL. But this year, perhaps even more electric because this year, it's homecoming weekend. For the first time ever, the Maryland Whipsnakes play home games this weekend. Joining us now, this man knows a thing or two about wearing Maryland on his chest. He was an absolute rock star during his career as a defender at the University of Maryland. Then he was the first-round pick of the Whipsnakes. He is Ajax Zappitello, and he is with us here on GCR. Ajax, it's Glenn and Stan here in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking some time for us this morning.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. I imagine that when you got the news, and I believe we talked shortly thereafter, this was like the best possible scenario for you, right? Like to go from Maryland to Maryland, this couldn't have worked out any better for you, right?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean, anytime you get to represent an entire state and wear Maryland across your chest, you really can't complain. So it's been nothing short of amazing so far, and excited to come back home for homecoming weekend.
Now, does that change at some point in the future when inevitably there ends up being a team in the Pacific Northwest? Do you find yourself saying, "Hey, man, I might end up wanting to get on that team at some point down the road"?
We might have ourselves a little bit of a crossroads there, but we'll have to deal with that when it comes time. I mean, Maryland's become very quickly a second home for me, and I got a lot of love for that place.
I'm just wondering, going backwards for a minute, I know you're on to talk about what's going on this weekend, but the recruiting process, what attracted you to Maryland if you're from out that neck of the woods? I mean, John Tillman's pitch must have been pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Tillman's one of a kind. He's an awesome dude. I was super fortunate to have him for 4 years at Maryland. Taught me so much, not just on the field, but off the field, which is something, he promised in his whole recruiting spiel. But For me, at the end of the day, it was funny. I went to a couple different places. I came to Maryland on a deadbeat Sunday. Not a lot going on. Didn't really see too many of the guys. And I was like, I want to come here. Kind of knew it right away. And, we're spending so much time as a team trying to accomplish the end goal of winning a national championship. And I felt like at a place like Maryland, I put myself in the best place to be able to accomplish that. And it worked out pretty well for me in my 4 years there. So it was awesome.
Worked out really well.
Yeah, I would say so.
Over the course of those years. Ajax, I know you have not obviously played at the PLL at Homewood Field yet, but you, of course, have played at Homewood Field. You know what it's like to play in front of electric atmosphere. How special is it for you, the idea of now coming back, it being – maybe it's a little bit of a weirdness to the idea of this now being your home field. Like, that might be a little funny. But how special do you expect this weekend to be?
Oh, man, it's everything. Like you guys kind of mentioned, it's the pinnacle of lacrosse. Maryland has so much pride with a lot of things, and they take lacrosse very seriously. And to be able to, play for the home team at such an amazing venue, it's truly one of the best places, in the world, with just the history that's behind it, the players that have come through that program, and being able to kind of bring it all together with some of the best players in the world playing at that stage and at that venue. It's going to make for a really awesome weekend.
Ajax Zappitello is with us from the Maryland Whipsnakes. They're home for 2 games, both tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Sunday at 3 o'clock at Homewood Field. Ajax, what's the transition been like for you? And obviously, like, you're such a world-class player, and everyone could see that. Was it simple, or like, and you've gone up against so many of these guys before, or did you have a moment where you're like, oh, right, like, as good as I am, these dudes are all really good. I don't get a moment off when I'm playing at this level.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, it took me a couple weeks to get adjusted. We were lucky enough to be playing on Memorial Day on Monday, so I was a little late to training camp. Yeah. And when I got up there, didn't have too much time. It was a very quick turnaround, and got stuck with some pretty big assignments on who I was covering. And, the biggest thing for me was I was so used to getting the number one guy and just getting dodged the whole time. Just because that offense ran through that guy. But when you have 6 guys on the field at one time that were all the number one guys in college, and they're coming together, the off-ball becomes such a big aspect of it that, it took me a few weeks to kind of figure out. And, luckily I was able to have some of the Maryland guys really help me out and putting it into terms that I understood. But, yeah, no, I think I've definitely found my footing. It's been awesome having the Maryland guys. I think we got at least 10 of them on the team, so it's very familiar territory for me, and it's just been awesome to continue to be able to play.
What's your opinion, Ajax, right now on the status of the league? I mean, there's no talk of it going under or anything. Not at all. But, I mean, just do you feel like it's growing the way you had hoped it would grow?
Yeah, I think, Mike and Paul Rabel, can't say enough awesome things about these guys, right? They're able to provide so many of us with not only a job, but the opportunity to play, a sport we love. And post-college is awesome, right? Everybody keeps asking me how it is, and I can't say enough great things about it. I mean, it's awesome. Like, I'm getting, I'm able to play lacrosse post-college and getting paid to do it. And at the same time, we built up such an amazing fan base and everything like that. It's awesome to just be a part of. But, yeah, no, those guys, I truly can't say enough great things. Those guys have built this league from scratch. All the hard work they've put in, it's really paying dividends now, and there's no signs of them slowing down anytime soon. So just excited to be a part of the league and continue to help it grow and watch it grow.
Ajax, if you look around the league, though, and I don't know how many places you've played at, though, is there a spot geographically where you walked in and you were surprised at how fervent the fans were in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Boston, right, those guys, we came back to Boston for the Cannons homecoming weekend. I think that was an awesome venue we were able to play at in Harvard Coliseum. Just a history behind that place. And then just lacrosse being back in Boston, because it's obviously another hotbed for the sport of lacrosse. It means so much to so many people up there. But at the end of the day, I think when we step foot on homecoming weekend at Johns Hopkins, I think it's kind of going to put everything in the rearview mirror, and it's going to be like, all right, this is kind of the peak of lacrosse. This is why we play.
There really is nothing like it. There is nothing like it. And, of course, the Whipsnakes have been, as you pointed out with all the Maryland guys, the Whipsnakes had already been the home team. So there's already a built-in massive fan base here. Ajax Zappitello is with us here on GCR. So, Ajax, I know goal scoring isn't specifically what you do, but I would imagine that still had to be an amazing. First of all, anytime someone like you scores a goal, it's the most electric play in the sport. But that's still got to be a great feeling getting the first one last week, right?
Yeah, no, I think you look back on the week before, I had 2 shots and neither one of them went. So Stags was giving me a hard time about it, something I worked on throughout the week. And then, I was able to luckily can one in, but it's all those guys. They did a great job, allowing me to step in, giving me the faith to do it, and everything like that. Still looking for my first goal ball. Hopefully someone has it, because I got to get that to my mom. But yeah, I know I got to get that to my mom. But yeah, hopefully it'll turn up this weekend.
And then I was talking to Heacock about it the other night, like just the nature of that win, as you're starting to get to the point of the season where if it had gone the other way, you're sitting at 2-5, things start to get a little, late early in that spot. How important was that for you guys on the road, right, playing in kind of a hostile environment in San Diego, to come away with that win to make sure that you get things straightened out?
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, you look at the week before, obviously a really unfortunate loss and just the way it ended in overtime. So, guys were focused all week and came dialed. And I thought Coach Stagg's message was great in the sense that, listen, like it's not so much what the other team's doing. It just falls onto us. It's how hard are you willing to play for the name across your jersey, not the one on the back. And I think guys really took that to heart. It was one of our most complete games that we played. We had some big time performances from guys like Tucker. Nards was awesome as always. Yeah. Just a very complete game. Our offense, we're still trying to figure out that starting lineup and everything, and some injuries through the season. So for us, it's just when you have that opportunity to compete, just go out there and compete. And I thought guys did a great job with that. And like you said, it's never an easy task to go into someone's homecoming weekend and play for them when you got the whole fan base supporting them. So it was awesome to be able to go on back to the West Coast with a few of the West Coast Whips and get a big win for us.
Did you have folks that came down and made the trip down? I know it's not like Portland and San Diego are next door, but it's a little bit, I guess, of an easier trip than it would be to come across to Baltimore, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have my parents there. They never miss a game. They're two of my biggest supporters. It was awesome to have them there. Actually, this will kind of be a big one for me this week. I got a bunch of family coming into town.
That's cool.
Got both my grandmas, my aunts, uncles, everybody coming in. So super excited for that one. And, anytime you're able to play in front of friends and family, it's awesome.
That's awesome.
Ajax, one last one from me. How long do you think you can do this? I mean, in other words, is the life expectancy career-wise in the PLL 8-10 years, or would you think you're going to be shorter duration? What do you think?
I'm hoping I can stay away from the injury bug and play for as long as I possibly can. I mean, the sport's given me so much. I'm super fortunate that I'm able to continue to play post-college, as I mentioned earlier. But the really unique thing is it's so different for everybody. You see some guys that come in and play a couple years, and then you got some guys, especially some of those Maryland guys, that have been in the league for, 10-plus years now at this point, which is just awesome to see the longevity of those guys. And it just speaks volume to how bought in they are and how well they take care of not just themselves, but everything they do that goes into being a pro athlete, especially when, they're having to have a second job while doing it. So it's awesome. I mean, I hope I'm certainly fortunate enough to be able to play long past my time, but we'll just have to take it year by year. And right now I'm loving year one.
And what about coaching for you? Is that something that interests you?
Oh, yeah. I actually I just took a coaching job up at Dartmouth a few weeks ago, so I'm going to be coaching my younger brother who's going to be a junior.
Oh, that's cool.
So super fired up about that. You know, obviously excited to get up there and get to work. I know my mom and dad cannot be more fired up just to have both of us in one place, and for them to have an somewhat easy trip up to Hanover. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. Super fired up to get up there and compete, and we'll see how it goes.
Now, your brother's he's an offensive player, right?
Yeah, he plays attack.
Okay, so how hard are you going to be on him as a coach? Like, are you going to be like, get after it a little bit more? We got to go. You can stay out here a little bit with me. Are you going to be a little bit more difficult on your brother?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to give him a hard time just because I know what he's capable of and what he's able to achieve. But, you know, the awesome thing for me was, like, I was able to kind of bounce some ideas off Jesse Bernhardt because he was able to coach Jared at Maryland. So, you know, having him is kind of someone to pinpoint off of and get an idea of, you know, kind of what am I going into, what was super unique and something I was very grateful for him to kind of share his wisdom on, just because it does mean so much to be able to be at the same place as my brother. You know, we only got 1 year of high school together before COVID came in and messed things up. So to be back on the same squad as him, it's going to be awesome and something, you know, I definitely won't take for granted.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's really cool.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
This weekend, again, the Whipsnakes are playing tomorrow at 1, Sunday at 3, homecoming weekend out at Homewood Field, and I believe it's PLLtickets.com if you want to get your tickets now, because if anyone who's ever been out to the PLL at Homewood Field, these games will be packed. It will be absolutely raucous. There is a chance that you will not be able to get tickets the day of the game. At Ajax Zap 4 on Twitter, and it's just at Ajax Zappitello on Instagram, right?
I believe so, yep.
Ajax, congratulations on everything you've accomplished. Can't wait to see you out there this weekend, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you as always.
It's Ajax Zappitello with us here on GCR. Again, the Maryland Whipsnakes play their homecoming weekend tomorrow and Sunday at Homewood Field. When we come back in, it'll be time for This Week and the rest of baseball. I feel like we've done a lot of baseball this week, but I'm sure Grant's come up with something that we haven't discussed to this point yet. Today's show is also brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. The best place to watch all of the big events is inside Sports and Social, just steps away from the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. And don't forget that Live Rewards members have the opportunity to earn discounts on cash and credit purchases at the casino. Join the Live Casino Rewards Club online or in person at Live today. See complete details, livecasinohotel.com. Stands here. It's a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor, dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8, with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. PressBox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCRs. We are winding down for a Friday edition of the program and winding down for the week. Stan, you've been glued to the Olympics this week, I assume? You're a big handball guy, I think?
I have not watched any of the Olympics.
I love the Olympics.
No,
I'm
glad for the people that do it.
Not the swimming, the gymnastics, but like the rugby and the volleyball is incredible.
How's the tennis been?
Tennis has been really good. It looks like it's going to be Alcaraz Djokovic in the men's final tomorrow. The women's final is bizarre. It's Donna Vekic, who, in fairness, is coached by Pam Shriver, who I just saw is keeping her ownership stake in the Orioles. She and Tom Clancy, I think, were the two that are staying from the previous group.
Well, the Clancy estate.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. That's a very good way of
But all the others are out?
I believe that's what I saw.
Yeah, Barry Levinson.
Or maybe it was Levinson, not the Clancy estate. Okay. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was Pam and Barry Levinson, who are the two that were keeping there. I'll double-check that real quickly. But, yeah, Donna Vekic against Zhang Qinwen will be the women's final at the Olympics, which is very random. And then, yes, it is Barry Levinson and Pam Shriver are the only two that are retaining small stakes in the club moving forward. And then Djokovic still has to play his semifinal this afternoon against Musetti, but I assume he'll win that, and it'll be Alcaraz Djokovic on Sunday. Andy Murray's career came to a close yesterday as he lost in doubles at the Olympics, and so that was his final match as a pro. And it's a bummer because Andy Murray's been an awful lot of fun to watch play tennis over the years.
Andy Murray. I thought you said Eddie Murray.
No, Eddie Murray, I believe his career has been over for some time. I believe. Unless secretly he's been doing the Brett Phillips bit where he's been trying to convert to being a pitcher. I didn't even notice the Yankees signed Brett Phillips.
Just a few days ago.
I had no idea.
Is it the Yankees?
The Yankees signed
Gave him a minor league contract.
To be a pitcher. Yeah, which is fascinating. We'll talk more about things like that. It's time for This Week in the Rest of Baseball.
This week
in the rest of
baseball.
All right, Grant, the spotlight is on you. What you got for This Week in the Rest of Baseball?
Well, I guess you already started talking about it a little bit with the Brett Phillips thing. That was one of the things I was going to talk about. But, yeah, I'll bring it up again. He's going to try and be a pitcher. He's signed a minor league deal with the Yankees. I think he's going to single A, so either the Tampa Tarpoons or the Hudson Valley Renegades. But he's
let's
going to
show
try and
some
be
respect,
a pitcher.
By the way, Orioles legend Brett
Yeah,
Phillips.
we
Like,
should
come
say
on,
that,
let's
yes.
put respect on the man's name.
I
Icon
do remember
Orioles.
that.
I mean, he's
Number
no
66.
Levon Soto. I mean, he had a real career with the Orioles.
Well, let's not go saying those types of.
Look, he learned the goggle celebration very quick, too, after his first hit. And he looked like he was having fun doing it.
I don't know what the National Baseball Council World Series is, but this is the event that the video came from of Brett Phillips pitching and apparently hitting 97, struck out the side.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the quality of competition is in the, again, National Baseball Council World Series, but, 97 is 97.
Respectable. And if you're commanding it. He's always been known to have like a good arm from the outfield.
Who else is obviously, Adam Lowen did it the other way, right? Where he went from pitcher to. Has anybody else successfully gone from.
Not successfully yet, but.
Position player to converting to pitcher?
Do we count David Fletcher?
No, that was just that wasn't a
That was
real-
a stunt
yeah.
move.
I'm sure there is somebody, but it's not.
Didn't Chuck Knobloch try it when he went through his.
I don't recall him trying it.
Converted to pitchers. I'm trying to figure out. I feel like there's got to be.
I mean, like Lee Smith was a catcher all throughout the minors. I think.
But he didn't like.
Not Lee Smith, Kenley Jansen.
That's who. Yes. Yeah.
But was he?
I don't think he ever caught a game in the majors.
I didn't think so.
There's that one video that surfaced in the World Baseball Classic he was catching years ago.
Well, and Jose Cuas was a third baseman at Maryland and never pitched. He only started pitching as a pro, who we just saw obviously in Baltimore with the Blue Jays this week. I don't know, man. God bless. Like I sure as hell don't blame him for trying. Like, give it a shot. Now, if he ends up being a Yankee, then I hope he stinks.
Yeah.
Like, all due respect, that's just the way that it goes.
Just always remember him wearing that Orioles across his chest.
He was there.
You gotta remember.
For a couple of minutes. For a couple of minutes, he was a Baltimore Oriole. What else going on this week?
I woke up a month ago getting out of bed to read the Mariners were in first place by a wide margin. Now I wake up this past week and this morning, they're tied with Houston now.
Well, that came last week. The Astros took over in the American League West.
Right.
The real interesting part was that for a moment, the Rangers were back within like 2.5 games in the AL West. That's dissipated. They're back to being 4.5 games back. The Mariners did go get bats, obviously. Randy Arozarena was a bold move. In a trade deadline that didn't really have a lot of bold moves.
That was a bold one.
That was as bold about as it got at the deadline was the Mariners picking up Randy Arozarena. It looks like they're committed to giving Tyler Locklear, the kid from Abingdon, more of a look after they had dealt away Ty France. I still don't know that they have enough offense.
Their offense is just not very good.
It's a 671 OPS for the team is pitiful.
But I'd certainly get that just making the move can sometimes be the type of thing that ignites a little bit. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Clearly, part of the story is Julio Rodriguez has just been miserable this season. And despite the fact that they're still tied for the division lead, I think a lot of us have kind of written them off and just sort of assumed that they will. I think the more interesting actually part is that after the Astros caught them, they haven't just completely fallen by the wayside. Not that they've been great. I think they're like 5-5 in their last 10. But the Astros have not. It's just a bad division. That's all that really is. It's a really bad division.
Any of those three teams could get it if they wanted to.
The Rangers can. I don't know that I believe that.
Well, not this year, but.
Yeah. Anything else?
You and I were talking about it earlier this week. I was sorry to read about passing of a reliever, Reyes Moranta. He died earlier this week in a car crash in the Dominican Republic. 31 years old. He had a good career, like 6 years with a 3.05 ERA. So, yeah, I read that. I was really sad to see that because that's a career gone too quick.
That there's been a staggering number of baseball player deaths related to car crashes and it's something that you don't know if you've not been to. Like, there's almost like lawlessness on the roads in some of those Central American and Caribbean countries.
Yeah, it's a sad thing.
Where there's just there are high speed on very dangerous
and they're just
roads.
very dangerous, windy roads. What was
Correct.
the pitcher for the Yorgett?
Yordano Ventura.
Who was
what
it?
was his name?
Yordan Ventura.
That
was another sad one,
right?
The one who had the issue with Manny.
And I
it was with Kansas City.
Correct.
Yeah.
This was apparently an ATV. This was not a car crash, but just awful.
That's just
awful.
You don't want to hear. You just don't want to read that.
Awful. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, that's this week in the rest of baseball. Thank you, Grant. If you have not picked up this print issue of PressBox yet, you are running low on time. What would you say? Stand about 2 weeks left for this?
About 2 weeks.
This print issue of PressBox.
Not a lot of them out there left.
So go get yours now. Westmore on the cover. It's available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. It's also our travel issue with a lot of information about sports tourism that you can still take advantage of for you and your family before the summer comes to a close. All right, as we wind down, let's get tidbits.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, Grant, what you got for us for tidbits?
Well, in a month, I'm going to be going to the Orioles August 24th game to see 3 members get inducted into the Orioles Hall of Fame. I am very excited for Nick Markakis to go in, him being my all-time idol. I'm taking a look at some of the Orioles.
That's your all-time favorite?
He's my hero. It's the first name I ever grew up with.
Okay.
I've always been a fan of his. Looking at the Orioles hitting records, he is amongst the top 10 in all-time doubles leaders, sitting at number 7.
You did call your shot and tell me you were doing this, and I didn't have the good sense to look it up and cheat.
I was going to try and do it earlier, but the whole Jackson Holiday panorama kind of took over. But I was going to squeeze this one in eventually, so today's the day.
All right, so
7 guys. He ranks at number 7. Who are the 6 ahead of him? A hint for one, he was on the first Orioles team, not the one that started in '54, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
Repeat this again.
The all-time doubles leaders in Orioles history. Well, and
You mean for career doubles?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
as an Oriole,
it's Eddie, it's Cal, it's Brooks,
Boog.
No, Boog's not in the top 10.
Boog's not in the top 10.
That's a good guess, though.
And Brian Roberts didn't play long enough.
Nope, you got it.
Brian
There's
Roberts.
one right there.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought he played long enough. How about Machado, even though he only played 8?
Yeah, I think he was short of the list.
Okay.
But he.
And are we missing anybody?
Yeah, we got 2 more. And
Yeah.
2 more.
Explain that. You saying somebody is on the list that was
on the original Orioles team,
but that wasn't a major league team.
They have Baseball Reference has him listed here for some reason. If we can scrap that one.
It's not somebody who wasn't a St. Louis Brown.
No,
and the
he
history
says
came with it.
No, they're saying we're talking about the Orioles team from the.
Tell me who.
Problem is, I don't see.
We're not
going
to come up with it. So tell me who it was.
They said George Sisler.
He's a St. Louis Brown.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay.
George Sisler is a St. Louis Brown.
So they include the Browns.
Yes, the Browns' history does. The St. Louis Browns' history is in kind of.
It's like the Baltimore Colts is the Indianapolis.
So maybe I should have known that when I saw SLB next to his.
That
probably would have
answer
helped
there,
me.
so what's
Yeah.
going on. All right, so there's one more that we have to
Great.
come up with. Ken Singleton.
Nope.
And
Adam
was-
Jones.
Jonesy is 8 behind Nick.
How about Bunbury?
Bunbury's not on the list.
Okay.
Boy.
So we're talking about we included Ripken, right?
Right. We
Yeah,
got
he's
got
all time at
Cal
603.
Brooks, Brian Roberts, George Sisler.
George Sisler.
is
Number
who we have.
6, then Markakis.
Not Frank?
Oh yeah.
Surprisingly, he's not even top 10.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
It's shorter.
Well, he plays shorter window. But
Right.
Brian Roberts didn't play 13
that's
or
fair.
14 years,
That's
but he
fair.
had 50
Fair.
a couple times, I think.
Palmeiro.
Nope.
Surhoff.
Nope.
Melvin Mora.
Nope. No, more. was a
Levon
good
Soto.
guess.
Levon. Brett Phillips.
So I might as well just say Brett Phillips.
God, who am I? Oh, how about Brady Anderson?
Yep. You know, if you're gonna go Levon Soto, I could have said Stevie Wilkerson for all that matters.
How about Aubrey Huff?
Those guys in comparison to Levon Soto.
You know, Aubrey Huff, I was looking him up. He
is a terrible piece of crap.
Yes.
Yeah.
But aside from that 1 year he had with the Orioles,
he was
he
very
had 48 doubles, 32 homers.
He was very productive. He was just a giant piece of S. That was the problem with Aubrey Huff.
So, Glenn, what you now need to do is print out Levon Soto's photo and just have an honorary spot on the wall.
He's going to end up getting up on the board.
Oh, but we're hyping him up so much.
He's going to quite make the board. He and David Banuelos, I don't think is going to end up making the board, but I guess technically he could end up being on there. I think that could still be the case.
Banuelos.
Yes. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's about. I saw it. Yeah.
Because he's the one that said this is a horse, a horse. Yeah.
Called it a horse S City. That is exactly what happened. And that, by the way, was only the start of
his problems.
Aubrey Huff being a giant piece of garbage.
Yep.
Only the start for him. All right. Let's wind things down. Let's get tubular.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Here's what's coming up this weekend, totally tubular-wise. Of course, Orioles Guardians tonight, 7:10 on Masson. Dean Kramer, Carlos Carrasco. Tomorrow night, 7:15, only on Fox, as we talked about with Ken Rosenthal, Zach Eflin and Tanner Bybee. And on Sunday, 1:40 on Masson, Corbin Burns and Gavin Williams, the pitching match.
I think Bybee is being pushed. I don't think he's starting tomorrow.
Are they pushing him back?
I thought I had read that last night.
Well,
that he's.
Let's see what. Yep, you're right. Joey Cantillo. Thank you. Joey Cantillo looks like he's going to end up being the starter.
We won't even see Bibby in the series,
Yeah,
no, he's being pushed back.
So Gavin Williams will get Sunday.
Gavin Williams is Sunday. Yes. Correct.
Okay.
That's a tough game.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Joe. That's your Corbin Burns start though. So.
Yeah.
All right. We will update that. Very good. The Olympics continue over all of the networks. The men's soccer team lost their quarterfinal today. They got blown out by Morocco. The women's soccer team plays a quarterfinal tomorrow against Japan at 9 a.m. on USA. Everything else, go to Glenn Clark Radio. It's too much for me to try to run over. It's Peacock. If you want to watch the tennis finals live, they're only on Peacock. So if you want to watch any of the tennis finals, and the only American tennis medal will be the doubles team of Rajiv Ram and Austin Krajicek are playing for the men's doubles final tomorrow. Everything else, what else? As we mentioned, the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony is this weekend. That's on ESPN and NFL Network tomorrow afternoon if you want to check that out. And, Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse continues out in Sparks, both tomorrow and Sannon's. Both those games you can find on ABC. Everything else, find at glennclarkradio.com for Tubular this weekend. Stan, you'll, of course, be back in action on Monday.
I'll be back on action on Monday. I think we're going to do it a little bit earlier, though. I think like 1 or 2 o'clock.
Okay. Stan, Ross, and Luke.
Yep.
Facebook.com/PressBox Sports. And, of course, you'll have power rankings up at PressBoxOnline.com on Monday.
That is correct.
And, as always, at Stan the Fan is how you follow him on Twitter. Appreciate it. Good to see you this morning, sir. Thanks
Good to
for
see
coming
you.
in and hanging out.
And really glad Graham is looking good.
That.
Yep.
Appreciate that. All right. Thanks today to Stan. Thanks to Ken Rosenthal. Thanks as well to Ajax Zappitello. We'll get all that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God. It's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com. Don't forget tomorrow morning, Paul and Ryan are with you for the Bat Around, 10 a.m., same location. Zarita and I will be back together Sunday at noon over on 105.7 The Fan. And then we'll be back here Monday. I believe the return of Griffin, I think, unless he's just decided I've seen the light. I'm good. No longer need any of this stress in my life. I believe he will be back with us on Monday. But, Grant, thank you for all of your hard work this week.
Thank you for having me this week.
Appreciate all of the effort that you put in. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, to all of our great sponsors and partners, including Easy Pass, Ocean City, Live Casino and Hotel. Visit Hagerstown in Washington County, Cruise, Maryland. Guilford All Brewery, the Royal Farms, the Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Maryland 5-Star, Costas Inn, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks still to Griffin, at Griffin_Bass is how you follow him. Thanks to Grant. Remind me, Grant?
On Instagram, 20G DeVivo.
20G DeVivo if you want to follow him. And, of course, you can follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. That'll do it.